circling back to roster IQ. So how did it work? Let me give you just a few examples. So overall, I was pretty impressed with how it worked. So you can see here one of the images that I uploaded live during the game. It tags the player, to the right in the automated metadata field. So it worked really well with isolated players. And it worked well with multiple players. So here you can see everybody in this image tagged correctly. And it even worked when the players were smaller in the frame. So there's 4 of the athletes here in the shot. It got every single one of them. And it tagged everyone in this group photo, tagged everyone accurately. And it even tagged players without the need of having their jersey on. And this was the thing that really impressed me, was it tagged even correctly when people were wearing masks. So I thought that was really impressive. Now I don't want to give a complete false impression. Like there's times where it didn't work perfectly and it didn't tag the right person, or it didn't tag them at all. So for example, there's this group photo outside and it missed those 4 players. Now, given the circumstances, I still think this particular example is pretty amazing, given the fact that they're all wearing masks. It did really well. So out of the 500, excuse me, out of the 520 photos that I uploaded during the tournament while I was there, isolated players, it was 94% accurate in its tagging. So multiple players, 2 or more players, it was 93% accurate. And it only tagged 3% of players wrong out of those 520 photos that I took. So just to recap, be a storyteller. Take people places that they're not able to go. In that process, if you want to be at the forefront in promoting your visual brand in sports photography and leverage your engagement on social media, I urge you to incorporate a wireless workflow. So make sure your images are the ones that are being seen and used. And also, I think it's important to keep updated on new technology like the AI tagging from PhotoShelter that can help you speed up your workflow so you have more time to relax and spend time with family or do other things that you want to do. Because for me, I feel like what I have least in my life is time. So I try to do things as efficient as I can so I can have more of that time to devote to my family and things that I love to do. So I think that the things that we talked about today can be a very big contributor to that. And so I hope at least one thing that I've said has been helpful to you and that you can take back and use with your team. So thanks.
Well, I'm jumping back in here. Nate, absolutely incredible. And what a beautiful story you just walked us through. Really took us inside the bubble in a way that I haven't seen done anywhere else. And of course, the storytelling is one piece of it, but the photography itself, just the pure imagery is spectacularly, powerful, beautiful, and so intimate too. So thank you so much for sharing that. I'm obviously extremely excited. PhotoShelter as a company, our number one company value is to help creative people thrive. It's what our CEO instills in every conversation that we have, and we are a platform that enables that, right? We don't do that with you for you, but I could see in your work and in your team's work that you are all thriving, and to see how our technology helps aid in that process gives us a lot of pride on our side as well. I've been a big proponent and advocate of our AI solution since we launched it late last year, and it's just so great to see it real out in the field, making that impact and saving you time and making you more efficient. So I'm super glad to see that. There are some questions that have come in through chat and through prior to chat as well, and we'll maybe tee a few up for you. The first is, and you couldn't be you couldn't have a deeper advocate for the idea of a wireless workflow. We've been pushing that in the marketplace for some time now too. So how did you institute? What were the steps needed to institute that wireless workflow across your organization? The documentation, but also just the training and sort of compliance with that wireless workflow?
That's a great question. And honestly, the nice thing about my situation is I walked into it, right? So this is something that BYU had doing, particularly Jaron Wilkie and Mark Filbert before I got here, that they had been doing for years. Like they may have been one of the first ones to start doing this. And so, I hear experiences from like Jaron, right? Where we just talked the other day when he was at the NFL draft. I can't remember what year it was with Ziggy Ansah, and I think he was the 5th overall, draft. And he's sitting there and he's sending photos, right, that are all getting pushed out, way before any of the NFL photographers are getting their images out there. And so we were essentially dominating that visual world of our stuff was getting out there, right, immediately. And so, I walked into that situation, which has been great. But then, we have a great experience working with our athletics team, with our social media teams and communications team that I think just really helps, with the fine tuning that process and trying to plan ahead. And
yeah,
I don't know if that answered the question, but
well, it's great to walk into it. That's wonderful. And we're starting to see more and more organizations, teams, leagues, colleges and universities begin to really work on the real-time workflow. But typically, we're still seeing a lot of organizations tethered or not going fully wireless. So it's great that you guys are leading the charge in that space, and the technology continues to get better and better too. So it's wonderful to see.
Great. And I think something that, if your organization is not doing that right now, so as a photographer, right, I'm the one with the camera. And so I have the power to be able to do that on my own, and then just say, hey, go to whoever you need to go to, whether it's your social media team, to whatever it is, and be like, this is what I'm able to do. Like, this is what I can incorporate into this. Like, what can we do as a team, like, to get this going? Because I can do this and we can get this out immediately. And here's why it's important.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think having the proof points of the speed, the ability to amplify your content so much faster than everybody else. And I think you cited 3 seconds to get out to your website, which I have a feeling you'll be hearing us mentioning that frequently too, because it's lightning fast.
Yeah, I mean, that depends on your connection speed, but yeah, sometimes it's super fast.
Yeah, but then to be able to pull it all the way through into the engagement metrics, and to be able to prove out, the speed of sharing into social is going to generate all that additional engagement and likes and shares and comments, is a data point. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about sort of that last mile piece. So I know you mentioned working through Open Doors. Maybe you can walk a little bit through how you work with that platform. We're huge fans of what they're doing, but how you're using that for distribution, but also maybe on the analytics side.
Yeah, great question. So as a photographer, in our particular situation, we're not in the athletics department. And so we take our photos and we put them on our PhotoShelter site. And from what I understand, our social media team works a lot more with the Open Doors and with the athletes. But from what I understand, Open Doors has a plugin that works in conjunction with PhotoShelter. And so those images are then distributed to those athletes to be able to use on their social media. And from what I understand, you're able to the team is then able to kind of track where that goes and how that's used. And so PhotoShelter has been a huge help for us, in at least on my end of being able to put it there so it can go to open doors so the athletes have access to it.
Yeah,
I know there's a
excellent.
lot of other programs out there that are used as well, but that's just the one that we end up using.
Yeah, so we've built an integration with Open Doors and a few other platforms where they're getting seamless access to that content on your PhotoShelter instance, and then are able to read against that metadata for as much automation in the process as possible. I think you're going to see a lot more of that happening as our systems, talk to one another in a way that takes a lot of the human work out of it and lets the machines do what they can do. I did have a question that came up more about on the photography side. So image selection, proofing, like where that lives within your workflow.
Yeah, so all of that. So kind of my workflow in a nutshell. Let's say I go to a sporting event and I'm shooting everything. Well, here's another nice thing about the wireless workflow, right? So I'm sending those images during the game. When the game is over, I'm done. I don't have to go back to my computer. I don't have to edit images for people to use. They're already there. So then I'll come in the office the next day, download my images, go through, make all of my selects, and let's say like I shoot 4,000 images at a football game. I'm not saving 3,500 of them. I whittle it down. The ones that will never be used or that are just, way out of focus, or my camera's, tilted way off to, throw those images away. And then I go through, select my favorite ones, and those are the ones kind of that I edit to get out there. And our athletics graphic designer also has access to all of our images that we take on our server. And so he's doing a lot of the sorting out individual athletes and all of that work on the back end.
Nice. Excellent.
So he saves us a lot of time with regards to that.
That time saved is so essential. It's sometimes difficult to measure and quantify, but when you can see the quality of the work getting better and better out in the real world and social and websites, that time is well spent. Question for you, just I know we talked a little bit about this, but I'd love maybe you can add some color to it. Obviously, this past year has been a year unlike any other, and everybody has had to learn how to be innovative and creative and problem solvers. I'm wondering what you think you've been pushed to do this past year that will carry through with you and your organization leading forward.
So just so I understand the question correctly, just kind of what I will take with me having learned from the pandemic. And
that's an easier way to say it. Yes.
Okay, great. So, man, I think, I guess my answer would probably be, in life and at work, is focus on the things that really matter. I think with regards to the pandemic and so many things kind of shutting down, it enabled us to see a lot more clearly what mattered and what didn't matter. Now, when I say what didn't matter, I don't mean that there's certain things that people want that don't matter, right? But with regards to like our institutional goal, right, and our job in telling the BYU story, there may be some things that aren't as necessary, aren't as big picture, that somebody else could take care of. So it kind of helps us to focus on things that matter most. And I think that's one of the main things that will stick with us, as a result of the pandemic.
Great. Let's see. I guess this is a question related to the bubble, and obviously this is the run out of the NCAA and their whole pandemic response. But whether there were any indications or measures that might have meant the implementation of a shutdown of the event, obviously an outbreak, but if there were other things that you guys were doing related to how to handle a potential outbreak at the tournament.
That's a good question. I think that's where those for lack of better terms, tracking
Mhm.
devices were kind of handy. I think to at least help others be aware of if they were in proximity to something that would have happened. Now, what procedures and things were put in place by the NCAA in case that happened, I have no idea. But one thing was for sure is they were very I don't know if strict is the right word. They were very cautious in a lot of the things that they were doing there to make sure that everything went well and people stayed safe. And
Excellent. Yeah, I have to say, seeing your presentation and walking through what that experience was like, it looks like the NCAA really had a great handle on this, and had a lot of the right systems in place. So yes, and as I mentioned to you, those trackers are starting to find their way into my life through my wife's school, and they're seeing the number of exposure levels being measured by the trackers reduce their potential impact by over 50%. So it's just that data analytics is really coming. It's very, very helpful. Let's see. We have another question. Um, this is a great one. So we see the AI utilization for basketball. Wondering if you are currently using it in any other sports or have plans to.
so we just were contacted to use it during March Madness to try it out,
Mhm.
and was super impressed with it. And so that's something that we've kind of been in the process of discussion further how we will incorporate it more into what we're currently doing or in the future with different sports. Yeah.
Excellent. And you'll hear a lot more about our AI rollout in the coming months in some of the programs that we're doing. We're continuing to build the capabilities into facial recognition and text recognition, which will make that whole process of switching over to different sports and different jersey configurations, sports that don't have jerseys at all, things like swimming, and that it gets more complicated, but we're building all the solution sets to handle all the different sports that are in the part of the NCAA universe. Question related, and I don't know if this is something that you are familiar with or work with. Somebody had a question about Tagboard and whether you're using Tagboard for any distribution.
I'm not familiar with tag boards, so my answer would be no, we're not using it.
Okay,
Not that I'm aware of.
good to know. I know you touched a little bit on name and image likeness compliance, and I know that is a big topic that hashtag has been doing some fantastic programming around. But you mentioned how the AI could be a helpful service in NIL, and I'm wondering if you might be able to add any more commentary around that.
Yeah, I think as photographers, we just have a great opportunity to help those athletes succeed when and if this goes forward, right? To provide them with those assets. I think we have a unique role in that. Now, how much of a percentage that role is and will be, like nobody knows, right? I mean, nobody knows how this will affect the future. Um, but I think with what we're doing and what we can do and working in our situation with our athletics department, social media team, I think we will be able to come out with some really neat things to help those athletes, succeed in whatever it is that they're trying to do when they get here.
Excellent, thank you. So it looks like there's a clarification on the tag board question, which looks like it might have been a typo about and I can handle this one, the 3% incorrect tagging within the PhotoShelter platform. So we have a host of ways to get at that. You can override, there's the ability to go in and edit metadata. So if you found 3% that were incorrect, you can always go back in and rewrite metadata on top of those images so that it's the right name, team, whatever you might be. We've also found in general with our AI tagging that 3% is actually higher than we're seeing for much of our tagging. So we feel like the accuracy is getting better and better. When you have the roster identification piece of it and you're able to let the machines train up on the configurations of jerseys, numbers, and face, and combine those sort of three vectors, you get close to 100% accuracy. So we're feeling pretty good about where those numbers are heading.
Right.
Let's see. I think that does it on the questions. Let's see. Cancel. I don't believe we have any other questions that have come in, but Nate, I'm wondering if you have anything else you want to add while we have some audience still on the line.
I don't know. I think I'm good. I just can't, like, honestly, I can't say enough like how much this wireless workflow helps and is important. It's if you're really trying to focus in on that instant lifespan of that photo, that life cycle. Now, if you don't care about that, which I think that you should, if you don't care about it, then a wireless workflow doesn't matter to you, right? But I think it's super important, like, to just try it out. And we, like I said, we've made those step-by-step instructions. So if you're scared to try it out or not sure how to try it out, literally those instructions will hold your hand through the entire process. And we also have some videos that we'll be putting on our YouTube page that will walk through it and go through all the menus on your, on your camera and everything. But yeah, I hope something, at least one thing that was said will help, at least one person here, and that's good enough for me.